Joining me is Gerard Henderson, head in the Sydney Institute, columnist of the Australian newspaper and author of the fabulously well-read Media Watchdog blog, out every Friday. Gerard, the ABC gets a token Aborigine, although not a very representative one, but then stops him from saying F the Anzacs. Was it right to censor him?
Well, I think it was a correct decision. You've got to remember a lot of viewers, including ABC viewers, get very offended by what they regard as bad language. I don't. Others do. And secondly, it was a live program, but the song that was to be sung at the end of it was essentially scripted. That was prepared. Now, he was allowed to say on the program what he wanted to say. He said he was being censored, but as claiming to be censored, he made his points. And I'm not fussed about that. I mean, I'm all for political diversity. I don't mind some radical lefties going on ABC programs. My concern is there are very few Conservatives, not last night on Q&A, but most of the time. And you find very few conservative Indigenous Australians get a run. Some of them are effectively blacklisted because they've told me this. So I'm not fussed about what he said, and I understand why management didn't want that in the song, but he made his point on the program, and he's a rapper, and he made his point the way rappers make their points, I guess, but it was his point, and he made it.
Yeah, I agree. It would have been a premeditated choice to have that song, and I think, no, you go and sing it on the street corner, you go and find another station, maybe SBS will do it for you on taxpayer dime, but we don't want to do it. And I think the host, Hamish McDonald, should have been more upfront in saying, listen, why do you want to do it? We don't want that. You don't need to do that here. But he didn't. Now, Hamish McDonald, though, right, so they've stopped this guy from saying F the Anzacs, but this Hamish McDonald did not, no one else on the panel, did not even correct him after he said what I believe is a complete falsehood about the racism of Australia, which a country, by the way, which actually gave this bloke a scholarship to one of our finest schools. Here he is.
In 1945, Indigenous Australians weren't even classed as citizens. My father was born before 67, so my father wasn't even classed as a citizen when he was born. So the whole point of a song about April 25th, and as soon as after I say I hate the Anzacs, I say how wrong is that? We weren't seen as humans in our own country.
Gerard, this claim, Aborigines weren't considered citizens, weren't even considered humans. This comes from a guy that's been to one of the country's finest schools. Is it true or is it false?
Well, first, I think you can't expect the panel members to get in there. It's too hard to get in on the program. I've been on the program a couple of times, a long time ago, and it is hard if you're a panellist to get in. But the presenter can get in. Now, my concern about so many ABC presenters, and I put Mr McDonald in this, is they don't know their history. Anyone who knows their history knows that the 1967 referendum had nothing to do with citizenship. It related to Commonwealth powers to make laws with respect to Indigenous Australians and whether they would be counted for all reasons in the census. So people before 67, Indigenous Australians before 67 were citizens, and they were citizens after 67. Now, this is one of a number of common historical errors that are made about the 1967 referendum, and it's the duty of the presenter to correct it if he or she knows it. And if he or she doesn't know it, what are they doing presenting a major current affairs program when they don't know one of the most central facts of Australian political history? Because someone who lived through that period, and if you didn't live through it, you studied it, knows that the 67 referendum symbolically was a very important moment in Australian history. And the presenter of one of the ABC's major current affairs program doesn't know a thing about it. That's my concern. I don't mind a rapper going off and getting the history wrong. Every now and then we all get our history wrong. But a presenter of a major program should be able to correct this, and he didn't.
I agree, you know, and for me it seems extraordinary that a guy that went to one of our best schools doesn't know it. I'd asked Scots College in Sydney to re-examine its curriculum.
But to be fair, he's a young man. I mean, you know, he's not...
No, but this is the thing. It's in the ether. How often do you hear it? We have... I think we've actually talked about this very myth on this show maybe more than once, Gerard. The idea of... We've heard other people on the ABC say, oh, we were counted among the flora and the fauna. And it's never corrected.
But a lot of students these days aren't taught history at school. You can't just pick Mr Ramon out. I mean, a lot of them aren't taught history at school. They should be taught history. It's not their fault they're not taught history, but it's the role of presenters to pick up howlers. You should be able to do it.
I agree with you completely. By the way, I thought it was quite funny that the Journalists' Union was backing one of this guy's demands, saying that the Australian media has to do a lot better on diversity, not be so white and Anglo-Saxon. Thank God I'm not an Anglo-Saxon. But when I look at the people running the Journalists' Union, these people demanding more diversity, heavens to Betsy, Jared, every single one of them is white. And instead of demanding diversity, I think they should pick up one of your points way back when. You know, they should give up their job immediately out of principle and give it to a token ethnic, right?
Well, I noticed all the ABC presenters on the major programs last night, they're all white too. And Hamish McDonald says the program's all about diversity, but he should have looked in the mirror. And he's executive producer on most of the program. The ABC is always banging on about diversity. What I want on the ABC is what Barnaby Joyce said. I thought he performed well last night. What we want above all is political diversity, which would include diversity among Indigenous Australians, which we're not getting on the ABC.
Absolutely. I'm trying to wonder when the last time was that they had a Conservative Aboriginal voice there. And we've got plenty of them, Jared. Jared Henderson, what a pleasure to talk to you. See you next week.